You know, most people think millionaires are created by luck, timing, or secret strategies. The truth is far less exciting. The data shows that wealth is built quietly, slowly, and almost always the same way. So almost everyone online has an opinion about how to become a millionaire. Some say it's hustle, others say it's real estate, some swear it's stocks, crypto, or side businesses, but opinions are cheap. What actually matters is evidence. So instead of listening to influencers or motivational speeches, we're going to look at real data, the kind that tracks millions of households over decades, not anecdotes or highlights. The Federal Reserve collects one of the most detailed financial data sets in the world. It tracks income, assets, debt, age, education, savings behavior, and investment participation across American households. When you study this data carefully, a very clear pattern emerges. Real-world millionaires, not social media millionaires, tend to share the same small set of habits over and over again. Before going any further, it's important to be precise about what we mean by millionaire. The term gets thrown around so loosely that it has almost lost meaning. Here, we're using the same definition the Federal Reserve uses: a household with a net worth of at least $1 million. And it's important to understand that net worth includes everything: savings, investments, retirement accounts, and home equity. That said, there's a meaningful distinction the data makes, and we need to respect it. A paid-off home increases security, but it does not function like investable assets. You can't easily draw income from your walls unless the property generates rent. That's why the data often separates millionaire households into two categories: those who include their primary residence and those who don't. This distinction matters because people who confuse home value with financial independence often believe they're far more prepared than they actually are. Another important point before we begin: we're not going to use averages. Averages are distorted by ultra-wealthy households and tell you very little about what's normal or repeatable. Instead, we focus on medians, the middle, because medians show us what most millionaires actually look like, not the outliers. When you look at the data this way, the first habit becomes impossible to ignore. Millionaires save aggressively but not perfectly, and not obsessively. They don't deprive themselves of life, and they don't live on nothing. What they do is save consistently. The data shows that millionaire households typically save somewhere between 20 and 25% of their income over long periods of time. Non-millionaire households tend to save closer to 5 to 8%. That gap, sustained over decades, creates massive differences in outcomes. What's even more important is consistency. Nearly 80% of millionaire households report saving regularly, even during years when income fluctuates, careers change, or life becomes unpredictable. This matters because wealth isn't built during perfect years, it's built during messy ones. When income pressure shows up, millionaire households are far less likely to abandon saving entirely. Instead, they slow lifestyle growth, delay upgrades, or temporarily reduce discretionary spending. Savings doesn't disappear. It flexes. This flexibility is not accidental. Millionaires tend to structure their finances so savings happens automatically. Money moves into retirement accounts or investments before lifestyle expenses expand. Fixed costs like housing and vehicles are kept at levels that leave margin. That margin is what protects the saving habit when life pushes back. By contrast, many non-millionaire households save what's left over. When income tightens, there's nothing left, and savings is the first thing to go. Over time, this difference compounds just as powerfully as investment returns. The data also makes something else clear. Most millionaires did not start with extraordinary incomes. What separates them is not how much they made early on, but how much of each increase they kept. As income rose, their savings rate rose with it. Bonuses weren't fully absorbed into lifestyle. Raises weren't immediately spent. A portion was consistently captured and invested. There are periods in the data where savings rates dip: child-rearing years, business launches, health challenges. But these periods show up as temporary adjustments, not permanent abandonment of the habit. That distinction is critical. Millionaires don't treat setbacks as reasons to quit. They treat them as seasons. And this is how modest, unremarkable percentages quietly turn into seven-figure outcomes. Not through intensity, through duration. That leads directly into the second habit the data reveals, and it's one many people resist longer than they should. Millionaires don't just save, they invest early and continuously. You cannot save your way to $1 million without asset growth. The data is brutally clear on this point. Over 90% of millionaire households own equities in some form, stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, or retirement accounts. Among non-millionaire households, that number drops to nearly half. That single difference explains a massive portion of the wealth gap. Saving determines what you keep. Investing determines what your money can become. Millionaires are rarely cash heavy for long periods. Cash feels safe, but it doesn't compound. Over decades, sitting in cash quietly destroys purchasing power. The data shows that households who remain invested through market cycles, even imperfectly, end up dramatically wealthier than households with similar incomes who stay on the sidelines waiting for certainty. Millionaires are not market timing geniuses. They don't chase exotic strategies. They simply participate. They stay invested through recessions, volatility, and uncertainty. Confidence doesn't come before action, it comes after. This is where many people get stuck. They wait to feel ready. Millionaires start, then learn. And this compounding engine, once started, becomes the foundation everything else is built on. What the data reveals next is where wealth quietly accelerates. Millionaires don't just invest, they invest in the most tax-efficient way available to them. This doesn't mean they are tax experts or obsess over loopholes. It means they consistently use the accounts designed to reward long-term behavior. Across multiple Federal Reserve surveys, millionaire households are far more likely to fully fund retirement accounts like 401ks, IRAs, and Roth accounts whenever eligible. These accounts create two powerful advantages at the same time. First, they reduce current tax drag or eliminate future tax exposure. Second, they create behavioral friction that prevents emotional decision-making during market volatility. Money that's locked behind retirement rules is far less likely to be panic sold during downturns. The data confirms this. Retirement account balances fluctuate less during market crashes than taxable brokerage accounts, not because the investments are different, but because the behavior is different. This long-term structure protects people from themselves, and millionaires use it intentionally. Another pattern becomes very clear once you look past investment accounts and into spending behavior. Millionaires are not extreme frugalists, but they are selective. They do not cut everything. They cut the things that permanently drain future flexibility. Housing is the biggest example. The data shows that millionaire households typically spend a smaller percentage of income on housing than non-millionaire households at similar income levels. This doesn't mean they live in undesirable homes. It means they resist overbuying when income rises. When income increases, lifestyle pressure increases. Larger homes, better neighborhoods, renovations, and upgrades all feel justified. But the households that eventually build real wealth delay these moves far longer than expected. They buy homes they can comfortably afford, even if income temporarily drops. This creates breathing room. Vehicle spending follows the same pattern. Millionaires overwhelmingly avoid high car payments relative to income, not because they dislike cars, but because fixed obligations reduce options. A large payment locks future income into past decisions. The data shows that wealthy households prefer flexibility over appearances. What's fascinating is that this restraint is rarely permanent. Many millionaires eventually upgrade homes or vehicles later in life after assets are built, not before. The sequence matters far more than the outcome. Another key habit shows up when life goes off script. Millionaires are significantly more likely to maintain emergency reserves and liquidity even while investing heavily. This seems counterintuitive to many people. Why hold cash when markets grow faster? The answer is stability. Liquidity prevents forced selling. It prevents credit dependence. It prevents panic decisions during layoffs, health events, or market downturns. The data shows that households with adequate emergency reserves are far more likely to remain invested during volatility, and that alone dramatically improves long-term outcomes. This brings us to something rarely discussed openly. Millionaire households are far less optimized than people think. Their plans are not perfect, Their portfolios are not always ideal, but their behavior is resilient. They don't collapse under pressure. This is where many non-millionaire households struggle. Plans are built, assuming perfect conditions, stable income, rising markets, predictable expenses. When reality deviates, stress rises, mistakes follow, and discipline breaks down. Millionaires, by contrast, build systems that survive imperfection. They assume mistakes will happen, markets will fall, income will fluctuate, and they design around that reality. Another consistent trait is income diversification over time. This doesn't necessarily mean side hustles or businesses early on. It often shows up later. Consulting, part-time work, rental income, dividends, or flexible roles that allow reduced hours without fully exiting the workforce. The data shows that households with even modest supplemental income streams in midlife and early retirement experience dramatically lower withdrawal pressure. This extends portfolio life and reduces anxiety. What matters most is not how much income exists, but how flexible it is. Flexible income changes decision-making. It allows portfolios to recover. It turns downturns into waiting periods instead of emergencies. Perhaps the most misunderstood habit revealed by the data is patience. Millionaires do not rush milestones. They don't panic if progress feels slow in their 30 seconds or 40 seconds. They stay the course longer than most people are comfortable with. Wealth is rarely obvious while it's being built. In fact, the data shows that many millionaire households do not feel wealthy even after crossing 7 figures. Their expectations adjust slowly. Their habits remain conservative long after they could afford excess. This creates a compounding effect, not just financially, but psychologically. They become harder to knock off course. Lifestyle inflation slows, satisfaction increases, anxiety decreases. And this is where the gap between looking wealthy and being wealthy becomes enormous. Many high-income households appear successful while remaining financially fragile. Millionaire households often look ordinary while quietly accumulating security. What separates the two is not intelligence or luck. It's behavior maintained over time. As people move into their 50 seconds, 60 seconds, and beyond, the data shows that the biggest threats to wealth are no longer investment returns. They are timing mistakes, tax pressure, and emotional decisions made during uncertainty. This is where the habits built earlier either protect everything or quietly unravel it. One of the most dangerous patterns is overconfidence right before retirement. Many households assume that once they reach a certain number, the hard part is over. But the transition from accumulation to spending is where most wealth loss actually occurs. The data shows that the first 10 years of retirement determine the outcome for the next 20. Poor withdrawal sequencing, unnecessary taxes, and rigid spending plans can erase decades of disciplined saving faster than most people realize. This is why millionaire households approach retirement differently. They don't flip a switch from saver to spender. They phase into retirement slowly. Spending increases gradually. Income streams overlap. They avoid large lifestyle jumps early on, even when portfolios are strong. This patience dramatically reduces sequence of returns risk the danger of pulling money during market downturns before portfolios have time to recover. The households that fail most often are not those with low returns, but those forced to sell at the wrong time. Tax awareness becomes critical at this stage. The data consistently shows that retirees who fail to plan withdrawals across account types, taxable, tax-deferred, and tax-free, lose significant wealth to unnecessary taxes. Required minimum distributions, Social Security taxation, and Medicare premium surcharges often catch people off guard. Millionaire households are more likely to spread withdrawals strategically, using taxable accounts early, managing tax brackets intentionally, and preserving tax-free assets for later years. This isn't about complexity, it's about control. They understand that every dollar lost to taxes is a dollar that never compounds again. Another overlooked factor is spending flexibility. Wealthy retirees are not immune to financial stress, but they have more levers to pull. They can delay discretionary expenses. They can pause travel. They can adjust gifting. This flexibility protects portfolios during weak markets and allows spending to resume when conditions improve. Households that lock themselves into fixed expenses, oversized homes, high insurance costs, rigid commitments experience far more stress and worse outcomes. The data shows that flexibility, not frugality, is the real advantage. Health also plays a larger role than many expect. Medical expenses are unpredictable, and late life care costs are one of the fastest ways wealth disappears. Millionaire households are more likely to plan for this uncertainty early, whether through savings, buffers, insurance, or family coordination. But even more important than money is mindset. The most financially secure retirees are not those who maximize every dollar. They are those who understand what money is for. They optimize for freedom, not perfection. They use money to buy time, reduce stress, and maintain dignity, not to win spreadsheets. This is why net worth alone is such a misleading goal. Two households with the same balance can experience entirely different retirements based on behavior, flexibility, and timing. One lives with confidence and calm. The other lives with constant fear of running out. The difference is not the number, it's the system behind it. When you study real millionaire habits through the lens of Federal Reserve data and the SCF, one thing becomes clear. Wealth building is a process, not an event. Most people think reaching a high net worth happens because of luck, inheritance, or market timing. But the data tells a different story about how people become millionaires. It's about disciplined investing habits, strategic saving versus investing decisions, and a deep understanding of compounding over decades. Personal finance isn't just about making money, it's about making money work for you. The households that retire a millionaire aren't necessarily the ones earning the highest incomes early in life. They are the ones who invest consistently, harnessing the power of long-term investing. Whether it's a 401k, Roth IRA, or taxable brokerage, every dollar is given a job, and every year of compounding multiplies their net worth. Net worth by age data from the SCF shows that millionaire households generally achieve peak net worth later in life, proving that patience and consistency outweigh flashy, high-risk strategies. Stock market growth is a critical component, but only when paired with disciplined financial habits. Millionaires do not chase trends, they participate, stay invested, and allow the market to work over time. These real millionaire habits include controlling big expenses, prioritizing saving and investing over lifestyle inflation, and continually reinforcing good habits across decades. High net worth households often maintain flexibility in retirement because they kept housing costs, transportation, and other big expenses proportional to their income, leaving room to continue investing even after retirement. Investing habits developed early compound into extraordinary outcomes. A consistent approach to 401k contributions, maximizing Roth IRA opportunities, and even modest taxable investments create layers of wealth over time. The SCF data highlights that households that regularly invest rather than simply save far outperform those that rely primarily on saving alone. This shows the difference between saving versus investing. Saving creates safety, but investing creates wealth. Without investing, compounding cannot amplify returns, and reaching high net worth becomes much slower or unlikely. Financial habits also extend to planning for retirement. Millionaire households do not rely solely on Social Security or pensions. They strategically withdraw from accounts, balance tax implications, and continue investing where possible. Long-term investing ensures that stock market growth continues to benefit portfolios, and the combination of retirement planning with disciplined investing habits allows households to retire a millionaire. Another interesting insight from the SCF is that households achieving high net worth do not require exotic investments or perfect timing. Plain, diversified investments in equities, low-cost index funds, and consistent 401k and Roth IRA contributions are the backbone of wealth building. The real millionaire habits are repeatable, accessible, and primarily focused on discipline, patience, and financial awareness. Net worth by age charts show steady growth, not sudden jumps, illustrating that wealth is the result of decades of smart investing and consistent personal finance decisions rather than luck or speculation. The takeaway is simple. If you want to build wealth, it is not about chasing tips or timing the stock market. It's about building strong financial habits, investing early and consistently, managing big expenses, and letting compounding work over decades. The Federal Reserve data reinforced by the SCF proves that anyone who adopts these behaviors and remains committed to disciplined investing can achieve high net worth. Learning how to become a millionaire is less about income and more about time in the market, wise use of 401k and Roth IRA accounts, and the patience to stick with real millionaire habits through every market cycle. By focusing on these principles, investing habits, controlling expenses, understanding compounding, and planning for retirement, you create a foundation that allows stock market growth to work for you instead of against you. These practices aren't flashy or complicated, but they are proven by Federal Reserve data and SCF studies to be the exact behaviors that produce consistent wealth. This is how ordinary households can retire a millionaire, leveraging disciplined personal finance and long-term investing to reach the life they desire. If this video helped you see wealth differently, take a moment to like it. It helps this channel reach more people who need this message. And if you're serious about building a retirement that actually lasts, subscribe to Life After 60 for honest conversations about money, behavior, and long-term security without hype or false promises. Because real wealth isn't about looking rich. It's about knowing your plan still works when life doesn't go perfectly.